was interested in talking to you because I've been a fan of your cartoon for years, and I can always count on you to kind of weigh in on local topics that no one else is in quite the same way. So can you talk about how Shrubtown began?
Well, I started working at the Wednesday Journal 20 years ago, and I was working in the advertising department where I still work, and at some point I thought, well, this newspaper doesn't have a cartoon, and I decided to draw one, and I did some mock-ups. I showed it to Dan Haley, and he said, okay, let's do it.
All right.
So.
And do you recall what the first one was that ever appeared?
Well, it started as a comic strip, and actually it was a serial comic strip. So it would have 5 panels each week, and then the following week it would continue the story. And, you know, I'd never done anything like that before, and, you know, after a while, even I couldn't follow the story week to week. So eventually I kept it as a comic strip, but I didn't have an ongoing story. And then I would say probably about 10 years ago, I ditched the whole comic strip thing and just went to a straight editorial cartoon, a single panel.
So tell me about the process. I mean, something happens, something's in the news, and then you decide to editorialize about that in cartoon form. Tell me how that goes. What catches your eye, and what prompts you to take it from conception all the way to publication?
Well, I mean, the best part is that this is Oak Park, and there's always something to make fun of in Oak Park. So, you know, I look at the news from that week, and I look for something that I can formulate an opinion on. And if I can't find something, then, you know, I go to the weather. I do a cartoon about the weather.
About the weather, okay.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, some of my most popular cartoons have been about the weather.
So, Mark, what are some of the most memorable cartoons that you've done?
You know, the cartoons that I still hear about are, there was a cartoon I did a few years ago about block parties, where there's a woman is standing and she's got her door open, and she's got 3 kids, you know, that are walking out of the house, and she's saying, you know, it's summer, you kids got to go out, find yourself a block party, and don't come home until you've been fed. And so that people still say to me every now and again, oh, I remember that block party.
That's great. Now, is it because of the truth that lied within, or?
Well, you know, that was probably a year where I think I drew that probably right after the block party, and I think there was a year when a whole bunch of kids showed up at the block party and lined up for the hot dogs, and they were eating, and none of us adults knew who they were.
What's your most favorite one?
I think probably my favorite cartoon was on handgun ordinance in Oak Park, and it's there's a guy in his backyard, and he's watering his flowers, and he's standing next to a fence, and on the other side of the fence you see the head of a woman, and she's holding a smoking handgun, and the guy is saying, you know, Sally, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this, but odd days are for watering, even days are for shooting. And that's just one of my favorite cartoons.
Good stuff. Now, we just passed the 10th anniversary of 9/11, and the Journal republished your cartoon from that time. Can you talk about the cartoon itself and just your perspective at that time and now, looking back on that terrible time?
Well, I guess the cartoon you're talking about was with 2 people, they're sitting on the couch and they're watching television, and one person is saying, what the punchline is, I can't believe we used to pay money to see images like this and call it entertainment. And actually that cartoon won a prize from the Illinois Press Association. I guess I shouldn't call it a prize. Some people would call it an award, but I don't know. I feel like it was.
It was recognized.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
that you know, that was a tough time.
Yeah.
And that was just a true story. That was me sitting on my couch,
Right.
thinking that.
Now, I know sometimes I've seen cartooning of yourself, where it appears to be you in the cartoon. Am I correct in that?
Well, some people would say that I'm in the cartoon every week, because all of my characters look like me. But
Is this an artistic limitation or a
but
artistic choice?
I've tried. I actually have to make a conscious effort many times. I'll draw a figure in the cartoon, and I thought, well, you know, that looks too much like me, so I have to
give it a mustache.
Have to change the shape of the head, or make them bald, or.
All right. Tell me about your own evolution in drawing and in art, and how it came to be that Shrubtown.
Well, when I was a kid, I used to draw all the time, and I used to copy, you know, drawings out of comic books and Mad Magazine. I probably copied more out of Mad Magazine than anything else. When I went to art school, I stopped doing that, and I started doing, you know, whatever serious art is, and then years later, I went back to drawing what I was doing when I was 10.
Tell me about some of the other art forms. I think sculpture.
My college degree is in sculpture.
Okay, so can you talk about that and what you're doing with that today?
I don't do really anything with sculpture today.
Typical of most college grads, they go into other things, and
yeah,
you're a 13-year-old.
But I'm still doing, you know, art. I consider, you know, my cartoons as art. In fact, I think I just calculated all of the money that I've made over 20 years in all of my cartoons and various illustrations and stuff, and I think I've probably finally paid the tuition from art school.
Well, there's that. Nice ROI. Who do you admire most, whether past or present, among the ranks of cartoonists?
Well, you know, it's probably my favorite cartoonist, like, I don't know, like half the world would be Gary Larson. I mean, when I was in college, Gary Larson was the top cartoonist, although he's not a political cartoonist, but you know, I have my volume of the complete works of Gary Larson, and I still look at that and laugh.
Now, we can find your work on oakpark.com.
Oakpark.com, yeah.
And
in the Wednesday Journal every week.
And in the Wednesday Journal every week.
But if you want to see back issues, you got to go to oakpark.com.
Okay. That went really well, I think.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, you didn't, you know.
Well, you know, it's me. Yeah.
So, yeah.